Okay, Tom, but basically, is a venture capital fund what you've always been involved in, which is betting, but on a much higher level where the sky's the limit? Is that a simple way of looking at it?
Look, I think any type of investment is similar to betting, isn't it? Because if in terms of, you've got to make a conscious decision whether you invest in the stock market, whether you invest in a house, whether you invest in a property, whether you're having a bet on horse racing. Are the odds that I'm getting and the chance that I'm getting a payoff, are they fair? And do I think I've got a certain chance of success? Now, odds may be more in your favor in certain markets. You've got, I've got no idea in being on a horse, but you're always making an estimate. What's the probability of the outcome of success? And I guess the thing that's so interesting about being a bookie is that you have a scorecard every 10 minutes. You know, in Australia, I was betting on the interstate. Every 10 minutes, you'd have a result. Have you done that correctly? Have you not? Have you won or have you lost? So it really had that adrenaline rush of being a gambler, in a sense. You know, I was getting this huge high or low of winning or losing. What's really different in the investment space is that it's such a long term, in that some of these investments we're making, we hopefully are going to be holders, long-term holders in for the next 10, 20 years. And so the same dynamics of assessing, well, what's the probability of this being a success? Are the odds in our favor? Is this value? Are we staking correctly? Are we putting enough money into this or too much money into this? All these assessments around staking, the price, making sure that we keep a level head, not go overexposed into one venture or one business. All of these lessons, the same lessons in gambling as in investment, they ring true. And that's why you've seen a lot of the greatest investors historically have come from a gambling background. I know when I read Charlie Munger's Almanac, and you see Warren Buffett's all talking about how he's collecting betting tickets at the racetrack when he was a kid, or you read Ed Thorpe's book, who wrote Beat the Dealer and ran a big fund. They've come from these backgrounds because they have a great understanding of probability. And so they're the same lessons, but you definitely don't get the same quick high or low from as you do being a bookie running a VC firm.
Okay, and you were there in the thick of it when Australia opens up and the European and UK firms sort of moved in. Do you see sort of parallels? Are you better to place now to with the US opening up?
Look, I think what's been really interesting about the US, I think very similar pathway to what happened in the US, in that it's such a race for scale, and that whoever can win that scale war and can get to being the largest and get that operational leverage and economies of scale will ultimately win. That's very similar to what happened to Australia. You know, it was a very tough journey for all the operators that came to it in Australia, besides Sportsbet. Paddy Power has done an amazing job in Australia and really reaped the benefits of getting in early and putting the foot down. But what has been interesting about the US is that what took 10 to 15 years in Australia feels like it's happened in 4 years in the US. You know, they've got to a level of taxation that took 15 years in Australia. So New York charging basically 52% of gross profit. The thing that is, in terms of regulation, the thing that I've been very impressed with, but also surprised, is how much the operators got on the front foot in terms of self-regulating and making sure that they know that it's coming, in terms of restrictions, in terms of what they can and can't do. Is that they've been really on the front foot of self-regulating, harm minimization, looking after customer, far more than what I think they did in the the UK and the Australian market. But ultimately, I think the US plays out similar to what's happened in Australia, and more so than the UK, because the UK in level of taxation hasn't seen that dramatic increase that the Australians saw. I think we will see it in the UK, but you've been able to have many operators in the UK because of the taxation. In Australia, it's really been a ramp up marketing wise and that journey for scale. But I think what's happened in the UK, they've been far quicker in terms of harm minimization to the customer and restrictions about regulatory environment, that more so than probably Australia. So I think both of them are great. We're very lucky as operators and participants in both the UK and the Australian market to have an idea of what's going to happen in the US market. Yeah, I've definitely got that in the back of my mind when we're looking at what companies to invest in and how we see the landscape evolving.
You talked about people sort of going for scale. There's been I've read there's been 3 years of sort of eye-watering levels of marketing spend. What's your take on that market?
So I think that you'll see the ones that can't compete will bow out, and that if they might have a nice niche business, you definitely don't have to be the biggest of the big to have a profitable business. That's been proven in both the UK and the Australian market. But if you want to really compete in the US, there's no stopping marketing. You have to keep your foot down and go for scale, because the benefits of scale, it's like a flywheel. You have the benefits of scale, you have the most amount of customers, you invest the most in product, you get the most value per player, you're able to spend the most on marketing to get more players, and it becomes self-fulfilling, and you're able to have the largest team to influence where regulations and taxation and all of these things go. There's such a benefit in a regulated market of being the biggest. And so I can't see Flutter, FanDuel. I think they will keep scaling up in terms of people, keep scaling up in terms of marketing, keep scaling up in terms of capital expenditure and amount they spend on improving the product. And they've seen it, what happens in the UK and Australia, and they haven't let up in those markets, especially Australia. And that's been what an investment. Paddy Power, Flutter made in Australia. They're just, it would go in the Hall of Fame of great investments in a gambling company, a betting business, what they did with Sportsbet. And I think FanDuel also will go in. What an acquisition, and that business is going from strength to strength. So I think that there's no let up whatsoever in terms of that path to scale and really trying to win that market.
Okay, on a personal level, you're concentrating your business mainly around America, but you've relocated to London. Why London?
Look, I've been in the UK for the last few months, and the reason being is that it's a lot of the deals we're negotiating at the moment are in this region. So we've been discussing a deal with a business in Prague. We've done a deal with a company in Ireland, another one here in the UK. We've negotiated a deal with a business in Miami at the moment. It's in this time zone, and yeah, Australia will obviously always be my home, but I've had to travel a lot this last period of time, and with COVID restrictions being lifted, has allowed me to travel a lot more than I previously could. And London, along with New York, they're the financial centers of the world, aren't they? And for us as a fund, most of the deals we've been doing have been in this region at the moment. So yeah, it requires a lot of travel when you're trying to find great companies, because you can do a lot of stuff over Zoom, but the quickness of doing deals, there's nothing quite like being face to face. And also when you can get under the bonnet of understanding the technology and seeing what the team is doing, is the velocity or the amount of deals that we've been able to do since COVID restrictions have been lifted and we've been able to travel from Australia has been there at a different level.
Now, as this is getting to the end here, but as we talked about at the beginning, you were very successful at promoting yourself back home, regular on TV, some sort of light-hearted programs as well, and also some fantastic advertising, I must say, climbing onto yachts and all stuff like that. But are you going to go for a less of a personal profile with this business? Is that something you're going to step back from a bit now?
Well, to me, I'm not a natural person of putting myself out there. I personally don't like being on TV. I get very nervous going on TV, and I also don't naturally like to put stuff up about family or personal on Twitter or Instagram or any social. And so during my time as CEO of William Hill in Australia, I don't think I posted anything on social media for 4 years. But from a commercial standpoint, if I can see benefit of promoting tomwaterhouse.com, which we did from sort of till 2013 till we sold the business, and it makes commercial sense, I'm very happy to do it. And again, when I bought tomwaterhouse.com back, it made commercial sense to do so. For us now, we're long-term investors in suppliers to the industry. And so all my focus is finding the greatest suppliers in the sector. They don't need me to, they stand on their own 2 feet with their technology. They don't need me spruiking me as an individual. So I guess I always just have that commercial hat on, what makes sense during the period of time. And if it makes commercial sense to be front and center, well, reluctantly, I will do that as a commercial point of view. But as a natural thing, if I don't have to put myself out there, I'd rather keep private if I have the choice, you know. And when I say obviously, it's always my choice, but if it's the same commercial outcome both ways, I'd rather be private than be spruiking myself.
Okay, and finally, your long-term vision for Waterhouse VC.
Oh, for me, I just love the industry. I love the fact that my family's been in it for so many years. I got to work with my mum and got it through school, work with my grandfather for years, with my dad. I just have the best chatting with my dad about the industry and what's happening. And so I want to be forever in this industry. And I think the nice thing about Waterhouse VC is, and the reason why I hope I'm doing this in 20 years' time, is I get to see so many different bits of it, and so many different bits, and be at the forefront of new technology and what's happening and how the industry is changing and evolving, and I just love it. It's such a difference, but sticking to the core bit of what I love, and hopefully we invest in some great businesses that really make a difference to the industry, and we're long-term holders for them over the next 20 years, and that's what I hope I'm doing.
Okay, we had the pleasure of seeing you at the Epsom for the Derby and Royal Ascot. Are we still going to see you in 20 years' time on the turf?
Look, it's the best, isn't it? There's just so much fun going to the races and seeing not only the best horses in the world racing, but also what a day out. You've got the who's who of the world racing it, and just the normal everyday person that loves the punt, and you get to mix with all of them and be there and be part of it, and everyone's equal on the turf, as they say, and you are like the next race, everyone's searching to try and back a winner and find an edge, and I just love it. It's the best. I hopefully will never miss an Ascot, and same with the Melbourne Cup, and same with International Race Day in Hong Kong. They're all good. They're all fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, that passion shows through. Well, Tom Waterhouse, pleasure to talk to you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Thank you.